Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Asking for a Friend podcast. My name is William Colley. I'm an executive pastor here at Downtown Community Church, and I am joined by your lead pastor, Benjamin Kempfer.
What's going on, my friends? We are excited to be back. Man, I had a blast listening I had a blast recording this last week, but also, truthfully, I listened to it 2 different times, and I probably shouldn't say this on a podcast, but I actually found myself laughing at some of the stuff. I was like, you nerd, like you said that.
Yeah, you're such a dork.
You were there. Anyway.
Well, I'm glad you're enjoying listening to yourself. But
prayer request.
Hey, if you guys are enjoying the podcast, we really appreciate you guys sharing. A lot of you guys shared it on social media last week and just helping get the word out, and we really appreciate that. And hopefully this is beneficial for you guys. I know we've enjoyed it, and we're looking forward to today. But also, if you don't mind just leaving a review on iTunes, that really also helps get the word out as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you for sharing and liking and all that social stuff.
Yeah, awesome. So just to recap, as we are going through this series on Sundays, In My Feelings, we are taking some of y'all's questions for us to answer during the week. So every Wednesday during this series, we're going to be releasing this podcast, Asking for a Friend. You can ask questions on our Instagram at DCC Tally, and you can answer the question we posted on Sunday, or you can just shoot us a DM, or you can email us questions at DCC Tally.
If someone DMs us, does that count as sliding into someone DMs if they do it to a church?
I'm way too old to know if that's
valid.
Yeah.
DM us and let us know.
Yeah, let us know, please. All right, so I don't want to waste y'all's time, so we're going to jump right into this. We had some great questions this week, and I'm looking forward to getting into them. So question number 1, what should I be focused on in a season of singleness?
A season of singleness. So this, we actually covered some of this on Sunday, but I kind of have a theory that what you should focus on in your season of singleness is the same thing you should focus on in your season of marriedness or datingness or engagedness. And the reason I say that is because the focus of our lives, right, is Jesus. He is everything, and He is what we want to be. He is who inspires us. He is who empowers us. And so oftentimes what I find is that, when single, it's like, hey, how much should I be focused on my singleness, on marriage, on, what's kind of unique in the particularities of this? And I guess how I would answer that question is really at the end of the day, the pursuit is the same. And this is what we talked about on Sunday, that my goal is not happiness. My goal is holiness.
Yeah.
Whether I am single, I am becoming more like Jesus. Whether I'm engaged or dating, I'm becoming more like Jesus. Whether I've just gotten married or I've been married for a long time, hopefully there is a progressive desire and pursuit to become more like Jesus. And the reason that's important is because if we think about both what the Bible says and our experience, it's that the more I pursue Jesus, the more deep sense of contentment I have, wholeness I have, and truthfully, in a lot of ways, right, just I'm happier, I'm better, I'm nicer. There's a deep-seated joy that goes beyond circumstances and situations.
Yeah.
And so I'd say, the biggest thing really is that whether you are single or not single is pursuing, one, who God's called you to be, and then alongside of that, what He's called you to do.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. And I think when I hear that question, I think one of the things that pops in my head is just being present where you're at. I think it's so easy for us as a culture to just be looking to the next thing. I'm single, I cannot wait till I'm married. You're married. I can't wait to have kids. You have kids, and I can't wait till they're in school, or I can't wait till they're out of the house,
right.
or whatever the case is. Yeah, but like being present where you are and realizing like you have an opportunity to be used by Christ in this season that you're in.
Yeah.
So no matter whether you're single, married, or not, I think it's important.
Yeah, and a different way that Paul says that in Ephesians 5, he says, be very careful then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise. In other words, there is an unwise way to live. And then he defines part of what wise living is. And he says, making the most of every opportunity. You have opportunities. You do have unique opportunities at each stage and place in life, and really investing there. When you're single, you probably have, if you're single and working, you probably have more money and you probably have more time and more freedom, right? You could just decide, I'm going to Atlanta, or I'm going to like a music festival. I don't know when those became cool, but like I'm just going to go and be a hippie for 3 days and then come back and work at the state, Yeah. But like you just have those senses of availability, and so you got time to invest in people. You've got time to invest in ministry. You've got time to invest in the kingdom. You've got money to save. Good grief, you've got money to give. And so I would say just looking for those. And the biggest thing I would say is one of the faults I think people run into is they think, am I wrong? And this wasn't in the question, but am I wrong for wanting to be married? Is that desire for marriage wrong?
Yeah.
Which I would say absolutely not. I think that's a God-given desire.
Yeah.
I think in singleness where it gets tricky, or more so than tricky, I think where it goes wrong is when the natural desire for marriage turns into an idolization of marriage. And so in singleness, in terms of focus, that's the thing I'd say, man, continue to pursue Jesus, continue to pursue who he's called you to be, what he's called you to do.
Yeah.
Leverage the opportunity that you have in front of you, the time that you have in front of you, whatever it is that you have, leverage that. And it's okay to desire marriage, but don't think that marriage is going to ultimately fulfill you, because it's not. Only Jesus can do that, and you're going to be chasing some false stuff there if you do, because no one can take that place of God. So just as long as marriage doesn't become an idol, more important than God, then I think just do what God's called you to do.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's awesome. And if you haven't listened to the sermon this past Sunday, I think you would get a lot out of it to go back and listen to that podcast as well. So going on to the next question, how do you decipher between flaws and red flags? Now, this question to me is pretty. I think it can be pretty complicated. It's like everybody has flaws.
Yeah.
And so you're not going to find Mr. Perfect or Miss Perfect.
Except for Jesus.
Yeah,
classic.
But. Jesus is my boyfriend, hashtag. But, hey, how do you decipher between flaws and red flags? How do you know that, like, hey, this flaw is such a big deal that, like, we need to not pursue marriage?
Yeah. So what's interesting about this question is I think for most of us, we know what the big red flags are, but just to kind of name a few, big red flags would be abuse. Someone physically puts their hands on you. That is a big red flag. Get out and get out now. And I say that in all seriousness. And then it kind of progresses. Maybe a red flag, but you're really not really sure what to do with, is that all the people who really care about you don't like this person. Perhaps a red flag is, and you might not interpret it this way, but it definitely is that without you, this person doesn't seem to be stable, And what's interesting is that it becomes this gray area where it's like, okay, how much of this is this person? How much of this is a red flag? And how much of it is a flaw? And to make that a little bit more complex, red flags are a bit subjective insofar as what might be a red flag for you might not be a red flag for me, depending on how I'm wired and who I'm called to be and what I'm called to do.
Yeah. What do you mean by that? Explain that a little bit.
Yeah. So here's an example. For Lindsay and I, when we were dating, what I knew was that because God had called me into ministry, I needed someone who had a high level of independence. Because God had, and I knew that there was going to be time, right, for my wife and for my family that I wasn't going to be there because ministry does take time. I also knew that for me, the call of ministry is an emotional calling. That you're dealing with a lot of people, you're dealing with a lot of junk, you're dealing with a lot of issues, things like that. And there's a privilege that we feel that we are allowed to, speak into that and be a part of the mess of people's lives. But at the same time, I knew because of that, I needed my wife to have a high level of emotional stability. Yeah. I needed to be able to deal with mess outside of home, but come to a safe haven when I got home. And so where for someone else, if perhaps they were, there's a little bit of more of emotional volatility, I would say. And I don't want to say, if you're emotional, it's bad or anything. I mean, please don't hear me saying that. But I knew just for what I needed someone who had a high level of independence and emotional stability. And Lindsay really embodies both of those things for me. So those are things that I was looking for, that I had, talked with some other folks or some other girls before and maybe, contemplated dating or, pursuing. But at the end of the day, I just knew like this wasn't going to work because this is really what I need. So those were for me.
So you dated before Lindsay?
Jesus. Yeah, it's crazy, right? Anyways, thanks, William. But that to say is, so let me actually answer the question now. So how do you tell? So that's what I mean. There's a little bit of subjectivity to it. It might be a red flag for you, might not be for me, which I think is a really important distinction. So number one is, what do your closest advisors say? And I use the word advisors intentionally. I don't say, what do your closest friends say? Because we all have close friends who tell us exactly what we want to hear.
Yeah, Janet.
freaking Karen. But at the same time, we all have a few trusted advisors that we know us, want what's best for us, and are going to give us really honest, unfiltered feedback. And so I'd say, what do your closest advisors say? And take that really strongly. And if they don't know what's going on, tell them. You need to have transparency. Like, your life matters, your marriage matters, who you pick matters. And it matters enough to tell somebody, hey, I'm not sure if this is a flaw or a red flag. Can you help me sift through this? The other one, and this was, I think, a little bit of an interesting one. This is, for me, a question that I would have to ask myself. And in fact, as Lindsay and I were dating, right, inevitably you find things that are imperfect about the other person. Mostly Lindsay would find things that were imperfect about me. And I think this is a really clarifying question. And so the second one would be this. Can you live with this if it never gets better? Or can you live with this forever until one of us dies if this never gets better?
Speaking specifically of flaws.
Yeah.
Like if they have a flaw.
Exactly. So, one of the things that's with me, I am habitually tardy. That's a nice way to say late. I know, crazy, right? So I'm constantly late, mismanaged time. At this point in my life, I'm just trying to pack tons of stuff into a small schedule, and I am, so I'm pretty constantly late. And so one of the things that we had to, really wade through was, is that a red flag or is that a flaw? And so the question had to be, basically, I want to get better at this. I want to progress in this. I want to do all that. But if I never get better at this, can you deal with this for the next 30 years to 40 years? Because at a principle level, you never want to marry who you hope someone becomes. You want to know that who they are, if they never change, is you're going to be happy with that. You're going to be content in that. And even beyond that, I'd say, can you live with it if it gets worse? Because the confines of marriage is, marriage brings frequency, right? I'm just around you more. Frequency breeds familiarity. Familiarity lets down filters. And so what I see as a problem in you, what I actually see when we get married is a less filtered version of that problem with a lot more frequency. And so you got to be able to look at this flaw and say, hey, I'm not going to marry who this person's going to be, who this person is. And if I see a less filtered, more frequent version of this, do I still think we have what it takes to make it for the next 35 years? 40 years, 50 years, 80 years, whatever it is in marriage. Yeah,
definitely. I think, my parents always told me, marriage just magnifies the problem, you know? So the problem's there, and it's just only going to seem worse, because you're closer with it. You're closer with the person. You're living together. You're doing every bit of life together that you possibly can. You're working as a team. So those problems just become magnified. I think that's great advice. And I think just the whole principle of I'm marrying the person you are, not who I think you could be. How many people do we know? I mean, we're both in our mid-30s and, have numerous friends and people that have gotten divorced, and a lot of it stems from, well, I see the red flag, but I can fix that.
You're right.
I can, I'll kind of be the superhero that is going to come in and kind of save the day.
Right. And they're different and I'm different. And I think that there's, some sense it's like, let me just tell you, you are not unique. Your situation is not unique. And here's the truth about how the trajectory of marriage goes. This is statistically proven. The first year or two of marriage, it's great. But what happens is, most marriages end between years 5 and 7 because at some point in there, you realize this person ain't changing. And I'm going to have to live the rest of my life with this.
Yeah.
And you feel confined, you feel unhappy, you feel like I just ruined my life. I mean, I know people who have said that. I feel like I ruined my life by choosing this person. And so what you don't want to do is say, if this person changes, then I'll be happy. It's like, no. I don't want you to wake up, to look at somebody in the face every single day. You wake up next to them and it's like, gosh, this is awful and confining. Is there a worse idea? So
yeah. Yeah, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
Is what we're trying to say. Awesome. Well, I want to move on because I want to make sure we get to another question here before we run out of time. But next question, what is the kind of effort a woman should be putting into a pursuit? So pursuing a guy in a relationship. Does she/can she pursue?
Okay, so hot take on this one, and this is not going to be popular with my Baptist friends, okay? I say yes, ladies, it's 2018, shoot your shot.
Why is that? Why do you say that?
Yeah. So I'm going to tell you why, and then I'm going to tell you the reason why people would object to it and why I still think it makes sense. So the reason why I say that is because for me, I'm very conscious of not putting up false parameters that the Bible doesn't speak clearly to. Okay, so if the Bible didn't say it, I'm not going to say you have to do it. Correct. I'm going to say, hey, maybe this makes sense, maybe this is good advice, but you don't have to do it.
Yeah.
The Bible doesn't talk actually a lot about marriage. It talks way less about dating and almost none about pursuing. And so you would never find a verse that says the Bible says that you shouldn't do this. And plus, if you think about it, in real life, sometimes guys are just unaware, right? There's this guy and he's like this girl for forever, and she kind of likes him, but he's just so unaware, and everybody looks at him and says, you goof. Like, man, of course she likes you. Are you kidding me? Yeah. And sometimes it's just letting them know that hey, I'm interested too. I'm available too. Maybe it's a guy that's asked a girl out before, and she said no. She shot him down, and then she wakes up and realizes, hey, this guy's pretty good. It's pretty cool. Or all the good guys are gone, and he's just the best one left. But whatever it is, hey, now I'm interested. You might just need a little nudge. And so I don't think that you can anywhere in the Bible declaratively say that. Now, the reason why people, I think, are opposed to this, and this is the important part, is because, and we're actually going to talk a good amount about this on Sunday, the role of the husband is to be Christ to his family. Now, Christ insofar as total self-sacrifice when the church was unlovable. We always think, oh, he likes to give, put the other person first. No. Yeah. Jesus died for our rebellion. That's what Paul is saying. Hey, husbands, you have to completely die to yourself. Her needs first, her empowerment and her sanctification are the desire and the passion in your primary ministry and the pursuit of your life now. And the problem is a lot of folks will feel like if the woman begins pursuing, the man will never become that. Now, I think that's a false assumption. Yeah. I think there is some wisdom in that at some point, right, ladies, if you're getting more serious, let's say, you kind of started to kick the ball down the hill and it started rolling and now y'all are in a serious relationship. And if as you're getting more serious, he's not putting you first and treating you with honor and your holiness and all those types of things, right? Like you need to rethink this because that's the call of the marriage. Because, right, you also don't just walk down the aisle, say I do, and then all of a sudden die to self and put your wife first. Essentially, dating is a long tryout and a long job interview. But I think the fear comes from that side of, okay, well, if she starts, then will he ever actually do this? And I think it's a fear-based. But ladies, I do think it's something that does make sense to be aware of. And that being said, too, I'm a little bit old school, so I come at this with a preference of I would rather, every guy ask every girl out in person, that they pay for everything until they get married and they just do a joint bank account. And at the same time, I do realize I'm 35. It's 2018, and ladies, shoot your shot, do your thing.
Yeah,
so.
No, in the same way, and it's a little difficult to speak into since neither one of us have, been or we're still pursuing our wives, but not in a dating relationship in a decade or so.
Yeah.
So we understand times change a little bit, but we also want to remember the role of the biblical role of the husband and of the Christian man. So excited to hear more about that on Sunday.
Yeah,
so,
fellas, get ready.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. All right. Well, it looks like we got time for one more question.
Lightning round.
Lightning round.
Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. So, all right. Quick thoughts. on online dating.
Hot take on online dating. Okay, this is unfiltered. I didn't prepare for this. Online dating, I am so out of my league in this. Here's my only thought about online dating. If you're talking about a place where you can go and meet people in a digital space that have similar interests and aims, and your preference is towards holiness, that's great. So this is, I'm gonna sound super old. So like Christian Mingle, like right? I mean, eHarmony. I don't know. I know you guys like Tinder and Bumble, and like there's like a long list of. In fact, we had a long conversation about some of that stuff, but.
With somebody on our staff that's younger, but
that was just trying to help me understand what the heck is this. Anyway, so I would say. Basically, if you're looking to actually date and meet somebody to pursue, man, that's fantastic. If you're looking to hook up and it's a stumbling block for you, and you could really easily go down that. Now, 35, 2018, never been on an app like that in my life, and so this is a very uneducated statement. But I would just say holiness first, and if that's the case, then
well, if you struggle with lust, it's probably not the place for you to be.
Yeah, right. You're an alcoholic. Don't go into the bar.
Yeah. So, pursue your holiness above anything else.
Yep.
All right. Last quick question. One, it says some, but it's lightning round. Okay. One practical way to keep Jesus at the center of your marriage.
All right. I'm going to give you two.
Okay.
Number one, keep him at the center of your life. He's not going to be at the center of your marriage if he's not at the center of your life. It's just obvious. You're gonna force something that's not actually authentic to you. Number two is really just have conversation. Like, don't be afraid to share. It's crazy. It's really easy to get in the ebb and flow of life and not talk about what God's teaching you, not pray together, not say, what are you reading, what's going on, just spiritual conversation, right? We all have friends. If you're single, we all have friends who we have been in this, realm of maybe your roommate, you're with him and you see him every day, you never talk about anything spiritual. Same thing can happen in marriage. So I'd say Jesus is the center of your life, and then make sure there's spiritual conversation, communication.
Great. Well, that's a wrap for today. Did want to, there was some questions on divorce that we are going to address next week on the podcast. And we're looking forward to that. Didn't want you guys to think we were pushing that one to the side.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun one next week. In fact, Sunday and next week's podcast, we've got a lot of preparing to do and thinking through and praying. So
yeah, we're excited. So thank you guys again for listening, and we will see you on Sunday.
Have a great rest of your week.